There we go. I think we're on. I think it's working. I'm going to do one little test. Making sure the sound's coming out. Ooh. There's the bongs. Okay, I think the sound's okay. So hello and welcome if you're joining me right at the beginning. Today I have some tulips, but I'm going to have a bit of a play with perceptual colour. I've said this before and then I got caught up in doing different kinds of things. And it's just me tonight, so chat doesn't seem to be working. Let's see if that's happier. There you are. So do send me a message and I will check them intermittently. Let's get cracking. So yeah, it's just me tonight. Graham's having a night off, but he will be joining us again in the future, I have no doubt. I have bits of leftover palette here, which I'm usually inclined to sort of use whatever I can from the end of the last painting as sort of part of the ground of the next painting. So I'm just going to have a little once over. Nice and central. It's just a little 8x8 panel today. I'm going to put all these yellows together. I can live up here with the other yellows. Some of these greeny ones. Yeah, I mean there's no useful quantity of paint really, but yeah, this is the fun soothing bit where come on. Prepare a nice clear space for a nice new painting, unblemished by the disastrous history of all of my previous paintings. I'll be free. I've got rid of that yellow now. To finally produce that decent painting I always wanted to make. This time, this is the one that's going to be unlock all of the struggles and open the door to a brave new world of ease and comfort and wild financial success. Yeah. Anyone who has been keeping an eye on what I do with my paintings and all the rest of it will know I've done quite a few different things, and I've always been able to find something that interests me. But the get rich quick scheme is going very badly. Who needs wealth when you can scrape old paint off a palette? Oh, it's a delight. Now, probably needs a new blade in here, to be honest, just to make it easier, but this will do for the moment. This is probably the last hurrah for this particular scraper blade. So yeah, so this is last week's palette. I haven't used this easel since. We're doing some other things. So it's nice to be back at it. And so tonight, perceptual mixing. What is perceptual mixing? Perceptual mixing is when your eye combines the colours and rather than having to sort of mix them all, you can represent them much like a television screen does as combinations of other colours that mix together in your eye. So it's your perception that makes the colour rather than any sort of objectively identifiable colour mix that might come from the palette. So the practicalities of that mean I'm not going to be mixing large quantities of paint in advance. I will get probably a few mixes just to sort of pin it down for myself so I know where my starting point is. And then I'm just trying to respond to the, just like when I'm mixing, I might say, well, that needs to be a bit more yellow or a bit more red or a bit more blue or lighter or darker. So I can change things on the painting, which means I'll be doing this mostly with brush mixes rather than big mixes on the palette first. So I'll be mixing the colour I need for that brush mark one at a time, wiping off the brush and going again, and repeat until there's a painting there. That's the approach. The things I have to be wary of are how many layers of paint I can get on the surface. At what point am I layering paint over paint over paint so it all turns into a mush? And in that way it's not perceptual mixing anymore, it's actual mixing, and it's happening on the canvas, which is a more difficult way of doing it. There are some very good artists who mix almost entirely on the canvas. You know, their palette doesn't do very much work at all. They'll put a colour on, they'll mix it in a certain amount, and the colours emerge on the surface itself. That is a difficult way to do it, but it has its own effect. So if you can get to this stage where that difficulty is no longer an obstacle to you, you can produce some really quite unique looks. Yeah, they tend to create a more complex surface because there's all these interactions happening right there in front of your eyes. Whereas if you're mixing the colours first, this is turning into harder work than I thought it would be. If you're mixing the colours first, all that work is happening on the palette, and then when it comes to putting it on the canvas, it might be just a very clean mixed colour that goes on in a single mark, and that deliberation and discovery isn't really visible in the painting. It's almost as if the correct colour just came in a tube. Except you've been making it yourself and skipping the putting it in a tube and taking it out of the tube part and going straight to the painting with it. So yeah, so this should be a bit of fun. I'm just going to concentrate on these three tulips, just this square here, and that's that bottom area, less so. I've got that blue background, but I'm not going to make much of it. Let's turn this ever so slightly, just to get them centered. Move that up a little bit. A little bit of tape holding up the backdrop. That'll do for that. Do announce yourself if you're here, if you've got anything to add. Hi, Josie. Excellent. And hi, Lewis. That come from YouTube. YouTube comment. That's always nice when people find the YouTube thing. YouTube is definitely the best place to watch this. I mostly do this because the setup with YouTube means it archives stuff for me. I rarely think about anybody else. It's entirely selfish. So this isn't set up to be entertaining or to be a teaching service or anything other than it's sort of behind the scenes, if you like, which I hope is interesting to some people. But it's still worth having, even if it's not interesting to anyone, which sometimes it isn't. But yeah, I won't live my life at the mercy of algorithms. I tend to ignore all that stuff. I don't do anything to promote it. I don't try and figure out what the most popular thing would be and do that. But that said, a bit of a lizard going in there, probably more than I need. That said, I have been working a bit on video editing because there's a few things I'd like to do that are more concise. Me rambling for 2 hours, the chances of anyone hearing anything I genuinely want to communicate become increasingly slim. So I don't want to demand that kind of attention from anyone. I like the idea that people can dip in and out of this little endeavour. Some cadmium red as well. Concentrating a lot on the reds. I've already got some cadmium yellow out and some yellow ochre. So they'll come in useful somewhere. Other than that, I think I'll just crack on with it. I haven't got any raw umber. I'll put a bit of raw umber out and a bit of mixing white, I think. Because, yeah, you can really lose a colour by just putting a blob of very strong titanium white into it. Mixing white, you can add with a bit more impunity without it. It hasn't got the same pigment load, so it won't wash out any mix it goes into. Right, can't get the lid back on that. So it's just going to be 2 hours of me trying to put the lid back on this tube of paint now. Round and round. Oh, well, I know what I can do. Give up. No. Just have that not fit properly anymore. That's fine. Okay, I've got some raw umber in here somewhere. Ought to have. There it is. Yeah, so it's this is a bit of a follow-on from last week's study in yellow. And I will do a few little experiments. So the first thing I'm going to do is get cracking. Oh, I'm going to need a power lead for my phone. 2 minutes and then I'll start. Okay. Just got my battery going flat. Hey. Clip my mic on again. So yeah, let's do a few minutes of this. I'm trying to think of what the dominant colour will be. And I'm also trying to think of families of colours. So if I'm putting on mixtures of colour on the surface, I want the background and the foreground and the subject matter to be distinct. So I might do separate families of colour for the two. The brightest parts of the image are these highlights on the top of the tulips. It's kind of lit from behind, but there's light coming through them as well, which has a sort of a warm glow to it. So I think I'll do a warm and cool sort of separation. So let's do some cool over here. The coolest colour is a kind of cyan. Let's just get the hue first. There. It's just some ultramarine and viridian. So that's a nice little pile of paint I can dip into. The warmest colour is a sort of red, orange, really. Let's pop a bit of that here. Doesn't take much red. There you are. Fire. And then let's make a neutral. I'm going to make a neutral with some raw umber. Effectively a black here. And some ultramarine. And I'll pop a little bit of transparent red. That's sort of a greeny colour. Pop a little bit of alizarin in there. And that will make a nice neutral black. So I can get some greys out of that. Again, if I use the mixing white, I can have a proper blob of it without it going too light. Now I start to think of that, I can think of contributing colours. I can think of contributing colours being yellow. Let's make a few yellows here. Let's make a slightly, put a bit of yellow ochre in it. Deeper, warmer yellow. Let's make a green yellow, which will go the other side. Should be somewhere in between these two. That's just going to have a bit of grey in it. That's all that's going to make that green. A slightly darker one. And got my orange. Raw umber is a kind of yellow. It's just a dark yellow. I'm going to put a white into that. So these are going to be my core colours that I dip into. Right, so I want some pale grey, which I'll put over here. Now, that's probably not going to be enough. Make some more of that. There we go. And the red contribution, I want a bit of a cool red, so I'll put a bit of white into this just to give it some opacity. And so with this one, put that there. So if I get a little variety of colours in the appropriate tones, the background is mostly lighter. It sort of crosses over this middle bit. So, I'm mixing too much now. I ought to just put some stuff on. And I think I might start with almost with the sort of black and white, really. I start with these greys. If I start with this grey, actually, you know what? No, let's put a few lights in right at the beginning. So this tulip here is going to go in the middle. It's going to have that sort of shape, and then this one go here, a bit of negative space, a bit below. That'd have a highlight that kind of comes down to there. And then finally over here, somewhere below that, about there maybe. Yeah, the bottom of that is here. That's going to be over there somewhere. Yeah, there's my light. So there's a bit of light on that there. It's going to be some leaves and things. Might strip a few leaves away, but okay, let's go to that mid-tone now. And a bit of thinners. I only want a little bit of paint on the surface. So that should look light against that. It needs to be lighter. Let's just do some of those negative spaces, shall we? If I put that little shape in here. So I could do a bit of rearranging with the leaves and that sort of thing as they go along. But yeah, I'm going to go slightly darker here, just slightly. That should be a bit more my contrast level, somewhere around there. Yeah, and that light stands out against that now. So if I can get my tones right, I can keep my colours within those tonal ranges and just shift the hues and really do that perceptual thing a bit more effectively. There we go. Here we are. Yeah. Da, da. That's quite a nice little composition, really simple little little trio of flowers. Going from that, I'm going to go to some of this orange. I've still got the grey on the brush. I'm going to pop some of that in behind. Still very thin at the moment. We can put some of those shapes in. So I'm not using any. Oh, there's that shape there. Yeah. I'm not using any thick paint yet. Plenty of room for that. Oh, that's interesting. I'm starting to see some of these sort of colour accents already. Especially in that side of that. Oh, so that's too much. I'm trying to do it with the direct colour. That should be accent colours. But tonally, it's making sense. Right. So now I've got that grey. Let's just go ahead and make the ingredients of this colour to go in it. So you can see how much darker that is. If I lighten it, there's a certain point where it hits about the same tone. It's very hard to judge. Probably a little bit lighter than that. And also, I want some colours to carry dark and some colours to carry light. So I could make that a little bit more violet in places. Or a bit of this red. And we can counter that with a little bit of the green. Again, we could do with being lighter, couldn't it? Actually, when it gets violet, it can be a little bit lighter. I think that's quite a fun colour to put in. And the last bit, a bit of that green. Yeah, that definitely carries the light in. And finally, maybe a bit of that original colour I mixed, with a bit of white in it to get it to the right tone. Maybe that could be a slightly darker version. We'll see. So if I get a little brush out, there's one. We can dab some of this in. I'm going to put in a few greens where I want there to be an edge there and in there and a little bit under there. It's just sort of partly where you feel it and you see it. Oh, definitely down into there and this side. And I can just give that brush a wipe, and I can try a little bit of this purple there as well. Between the two of them, it should create a nice kind of almost sort of flashing background. You see that the purple looks darker, and I can use that a bit more to create a bit more contrast with the yellow at some of those edges. Where it sort of meets in the middle. On the canvas it will start to turn into this slightly greeny blue. And use some of those purples just to I'll be moving to the green from there, but where are these colours? Yeah. Especially at the edges. It'll really give a context if you put it at the edge. It's the way into the image. You give this slightly purpley quality, especially with the shadows. Then that's going to create the sort of contrast into the yellow. Again, wipe the excess off again. We'll go back to that green. There's a bit in there. Definitely a bit down here. In there. Ah, and under here. There we go. I can make different versions. If the green gets too much, I can actually even put pink in it to sort of carry it away from that original colour. This green is having a lightening effect. There we go. So I'm going to keep this quick tonight. This is going to be a quick and simple painting. I'm not going to fiddle with it. I'm not going to try and make it do more than is natural for it to do. Where else? Definitely a bit down here. Less so around here, but a little bit. especially to create an edge. And break some of those edges as I go as well. So yeah, tonally I'm quite happy with that. I can put some thicker colour in later on. I must remember that I put that brush there. I started to use these little holes in the stand and then I forget the brushes are there, and I've let more than one dry now and I'm embarrassed and ashamed by that. Okay, I've got this dark yellow, this sort of raw umber colour. It's got some neutrality to it. I'm going to put it in some places where it can just do its job of darkening. Put some in there as well, and under here. So this might look way too dark at the moment, and it is, but it's going to get lightened by little blobs of colour on the top, and that will make it come to life. But some of where it defines some edges, especially down here, it's quite neutral. Maybe that'll survive. And there's this change of direction. And here. Maybe a little bit there even. And in here. It gets darker. Okay, while I'm in the dark bit, get some of this blue and some of this dark grey. And the temptation to just do a stalk as a line, but it isn't really a line. That one's definitely going to have some of the leaves pulled away from it. There, that's better. So it drifts across and then back again. This is going to be useful for the leaves too. So I'm going to put these blues in, and they're going to be, like I said, sort of a placeholder. I'm going to worry about detail at the bottom too much. So these the water evaporated when I first got these, and they all completely wilted. And I put some more water in, and they all came back to life. But the ends of the leaves are somewhat well, they've been revived, put it that way. Come back very nicely, but yeah, the ends of the leaves have had a bit of a frazzling. That's the best word. Okay. Well, that's going. Let's darken it with a bit of this. So I was saying about brush mixes. I've got some Viridian here. I'm going to put it in a few places. The colour doesn't really get to show up because it is very, very dark. But it will suit what comes next. Just borrowing some of that yellow. Let's put a few little patches in. Oh, almost yellow there. Now, as it mixes on the brush, it brings out these stronger colours as well. That is a glow a glowing green. It also turns up in here. I'm doing particular specific shapes now, which I said I wouldn't do. So I'm trying to resist that. But I can throw other colours in as I go along. So I can go with a warmer yellow now. That's going to be too bright, so I'm going to mix some of this grey with it. And that's going to turn up in here, in the stalk. And this stalk. And it's on there. It might turn up a little bit in some of the actual tulips as well. Again, because I'm working with quite a big brush, it's not, oh, that's more like it. It's not going to be like pointillism or anything like that. Because the illusory nature isn't the main part. It's more just a matter of everything being a bit broken up. That should be enough of that. I'll wipe the excess there. I'll go back in with this green, same green here, but this I'm definitely going to be working over the top of. So let's have a bit of that super crisp pale green and dot some of that in, especially to create some little shapes. And if that's going to all be too cool, where else is that? Let's have a bit there. Oh, all down the side of this. What I hope will happen is that the viewer's eye will take on the job of putting the image back together. Which, you know, generally works quite well. We like to try and make sense of things. And so that's a process that the human brain relishes, looks forward to. So yeah, very much hope the sound's still okay. Looks like it's working. So while I've got this colour on the brush, I can look for other places it might go, and it might have a little hint of it here. That's too pale though. It's actually somewhere in between. And the point isn't to sort of identify the colour and that's it, and get it correct. It's to introduce just little flashes of how the colour feels and hope that that all makes sense and comes together at the end. That's so here, but that's definitely a little bit cooler. What about in there? What's that doing? A little bit of light going across. A little bit of that in there. Cool that off. Let's go back to the yellow one. I want to lighten that a little bit. Yeah. Back to my brown. Pop a few dabs of that in. So what I'm not doing is mixing all the colours together. So there is some literal colour there. I don't think I can really avoid that. What else can this do? That needs to be bluer and paler. So I'm going to do some very pale blue here. I'm just putting a few dabs. A bit of the edge. And then what does it do? Good question. Put a yellow up at the top just to get that shape in. Anything else behaving like that? Yes. Here's a bit. Oh, there's a bit there. In fact, there's a yellowy green down here. At some point I'm probably going to want to clean these brushes, but not too soon. And the image is starting to appear, and it's quite fun. It's quite fun how it's happening. I'm going to go in with some of this brighter yellow. I'm going to put it in places where I feel like it needs to go, in here. And again, it's not literal, it's just areas that lean towards this colour are going to get a few little blobs of it to help it along. And sometimes it might look like I'm blocking it in, but I am thinking ahead to leaving some room for other paint to go over the top. Like with these darks here. And some of this is a bit directional. There's going to be extra lights going on top of this, so I'm not going to think about that too much. What about over here? There's less of that sort of warm yellow. A little dab there, there's a little dab in that. There's some there. A little hint of it at the edge. Let's do some of these oranges while that's on the brush. I'm going to be sparing with this because I want room for some reds. The reds can bring some dark in. Oh yeah, definitely a bit of orange in there. And in there. But again, it's starting to get too light almost. Right, definitely in here. Probably enough of that. Let's go into the red. I made some of this lighter red, but it's not anywhere near as light as the reds and the oranges. That's going to darken this. Going to drag some of that out. So now it is really starting to mix on the surface, but that's okay. I can get away with that. There's going to be a few reds in here. Definitely where they there. Create some contrast. And some reds up here, especially along that line, and a little bit here, so that lightens the shadow area I made. And then here sort of leaves that dark edge. Oh, that's greener. It's a bit redder under here. I'm going to pop a little bit of red in there, and quite a bit more under here. It's going to have a bit more red in it. And just a few sort of dabs. I don't want to do lines. I want to maintain the thing of any colour that goes on has a small area, so it gets to express its colour rather than be part of a drawing. Let's put a few of these warmer yellows and lighten them a bit, and then we'll really be getting somewhere. We could even make a slightly cooler light. Use a bit of this green again. And a pinker light as well, I think, actually. You know, I'll pop a bit of this in and see what it does. Bit too cool. I might go better over here. That's much better there. There's a bit of that highlight there. There's a bit here. Quite a bit down there. So I haven't got a lot of the yellow content in it just yet, but that will come. And that, if these are lighter, the yellow content can be darker when it comes in. Where else? All of that's a bit warmer, except a few bits up here. Maybe some of that. Okay, I'm going to make some really pale pink. I'm going to use the CAD because it will cool down just by virtue of being lightened. And there's a few bits here. And some of these lights are more going to express the sense of the light rather than any sort of local colour or anything sort of descriptive. And here especially. So you get some directionality from it. You get some tonal work from it, and the colour just creates a bit of a vibration in places where I want to create some light, and there should be something here as well. Especially that edge. In fact, that keeps wandering up here. Okay, yeah, so I started to do lines again there. I shouldn't have done. I'm going to go into the alizarin here, make an even cooler pink that can just go over that. Yeah. Darken a bit as we go. I want to darken this area and warm it slightly. That's quite a good colour to do it with. Yeah, it works well there. Here. Create a change from that cadmium. Cool things down. Oh, that's too much. It can shift the tone of some of these dark areas here and here. Oh yeah, that's a really helpful colour. I'm glad I found that. So we can see these colours starting to emerge. I haven't got to the really bright ones yet. I've got some of these paler greens to go in. I haven't used any of this directly, but it can go in here now. And that's going to look brighter. Oh, poor things. There's no one to stand around and witness their existence. Right, yeah, these needed some green around them. Just break that up a little bit. What about here? Here, yes. And here. They can go into being a stronger colour. And there, to a certain extent. So it's, yeah, I'm doing this push and pull thing. Sometimes I'm repeating a mark and moving one over another. Sometimes I'm just going near it and giving it an extra bit of flavour here. It's going to be an important bit. Anywhere else that goes, you can probably go into, yeah, the edge of that leaf a little bit. I'm going to go back to my other brush. What did I have? Oh, there it is. Yes. And I'm going to go back in with some of these other colours. I'm going to go in with the blue now. I've got this really stark blue, and it's really going to help see some of these edges. I think maybe I should do the lights first, the yellowy lights. Golden lights. Some of that very pale yellow. It's going to be a bit boring on its own, but hopefully the other colours will sort of support it. Maybe the intense yellow needs to come from here. I'll just go in with some really intense yellow. Even use a little bit of that orange just to warm it up. And in here, there's a little hint of it there. These marks get too big, I'm going to have to sort of break them up. So I can still lighten this where it needs it. With some other colours. Not just going to be yellow. I'll just keep dotting it in where I think it needs to go. In here as well. Not as much here, but a little bit. So those warm colours I was putting in at the beginning, I've kind of found my way into how they're going to work. Where there's some brightness around the edge, there's going to be some yellow underneath. In there. Little dab in there. A little bit at the end. A little bit there. Am I becoming uncomfortable with this? I don't think so. I think I'm finding my way into it. I don't want to blend things too much or move things around too much. Wakey, wakey. Yeah. These yellows are starting to turn up, and they do need to go in a few of these places. Let's go back to that highlight colour here. See if that helps. Okay, I'm going to use some of this. Keep going to these greens. I think I need more pinks. I think I need some very, very bright, pale, harsh pinks. I'm going to use alizarin. See if that can give me a better sort of edge along here. It does sort of jump out now, where I need that little highlight and at the top. And up here and at the top of that. And up here, yeah, so it's lightening this. And there. Where else over here? Just right at the top. A bit over here. A few little bits. Yeah, I've already found it on that leaf. Let's pop a bit on here. Right, this blue, I can use it a bit more solidly now to sort of really redefine some of these negative shapes, because it's just different to the other colours. I've made it a bit darker. And it should make a nice little sort of dance around the perimeters of the shapes to just make them jump out a little bit. A bit more of that pink just here. Maybe even just some pure white. Yeah, there's some other colours going to go back into this. While I've got that pure white on, is there anywhere else I want it to go? A bit in there. Maybe a little bit in here. Oh yeah, and at these edges I did too much there. That's too much yellow, but the very edges can have this sort of other colour helping them along. Where else is that going to go? Just define some of that edge. That's going to stay light. A little bit in here. Pinch the top off that. Fill in some of these little sort of nothingy gaps that are. This whole background's getting bluer. It's getting quite intense actually. I could take it down a bit by putting something a bit more orange in it. But first of all, yeah. So that background blue colour, it's got some real energy going on around it. I'm quite pleased with that. There's other places where it can have a bit more, you can do a bit more to play with the lights. And for that, I will want a bit of pink, I think. And then this will be nearly done. There you are. Let's just pop a bit of that blue in the gap so we can see the shapes better. Is there anywhere where this goes onto the inside? I'm going to pop a bit of purple in here and in here. And a bit in there. And a bit under there. That's a bit more like regular painting actually. Right. Get some more of that pink going. This is going to be really pale. And this is just going to express areas where there's little flashes of light coming out in here, in this gap, along this edge. And it sort of come to life. out of here. Against that edge there. It's almost sort of too deliberately spotty, so I'm going to, like I said, I haven't quite got the scale and detail to get away with trying to do pointillism. That's not going to happen. But that, there's little pinks and things that are on the highlight areas. Is that an hour? Is that a quarter? Oh, it's an hour. I'm an hour in. Let's spatule that. And then I can, because these marks are on the top, you're seeing them as sort of deliberate shapes I've made. When the spatula's done its thing, it will break up those shapes a bit. There isn't quite enough paint for it all to mix into a mush. And then I can look at what I can reintroduce. So I still have those colours. Just take the excess off that. Let's come back in with some of this here. This will make that pink fall into the background, but it will still be doing its job. And this is this slightly harsher greeny blue, which is the one I mixed right at the beginning. This should bring it to life a little bit. Yeah, a bit dark there. I'll make a lighter version of it in a minute. There you are. Yeah, a few little hints of that pink just breaking into the rest of it, so it's not too out of place. And that way you sort of deselect it with the eye and then it's not important anymore. Let's do a paler version of that blue. Oh yeah. Same thing down here. Chucking a few of those pale greens. Da, da, da. Bring that back a little bit, especially where the lights are. And that really fights with the pink, but in a way that's sort of, it's hard to describe really. This is a fun little harmony created between those two things. Yeah, okay, I think that's probably not too far off. That is a perceptual mixing version. Now we get a bit more direction into these as well in places. Probably wasn't thinking that much about that, but it's only a 1 hour painting, so you know, you find out what's going on. I'm going to have a bit of green there next to that orange in that. In fact, let's do that twice, because if it works once, it'll work again. Let's go back with that yellowy orange. Let's just pop a few bits in. I can get away with it. A bit more yellow in there, and there. I think this one deserves a bit more, but there is a difference between it and the others. So, let's get some of that orange and some of that brown. Let's see what that does. Give me a bit more tulipness. Right here. No, I'm overthinking it. It was working fine. You're fiddling, leave it alone. Last bit of light is going to be back with the cool colours. Get a bit of that pink. Yeah. If I close my eye and blur my vision, that works absolutely fine. But actually, this would be the fun part. I'm going to sign that with, what am I going to sign it? I'm going to sign it with this blue, which is the first colour I mixed. Okay. So yes, short and sweet, but let's have a little zoom in, shall we? Or zoom out, zoom in. So there's my tulips, and there's my painting of them. Zoom right in, you can see all these different colours, all kind of fighting out on the surface. If you look from here, this is where I am. Zoom in. So that's a little bit of springtime energy popping up for us there. If I come back out, there's this moment before it focuses again. It focuses rather too well, doesn't it? Where you can kind of see the perceptual colour doing its job. So yeah, I hope that was fun to watch. It was fun to do. There you are. Let's get a bit of distance from it. There you go. So you can see it rather differently now. It's a fairly simple image. Cat's not impressed, but then he never is. So thank you very much for joining me. And for sharing in the fun. And see you next time.